Welcome to Take 3, coming to you on WTSR Radio 93.1 FM. I'm Notaje from Colmado Music Group.
And I'm Bill Nobes. Each episode of Take 3 brings you one independent artist, 3 songs performed live, and an in-depth interview about each song. This session was recorded on August 21st, 2022 from the House of Robot.
And this episode's artist is Josue Lora.
Hey, how's it going?
Let's go to the first song.
Hey, how's it going? It's Josue Lora, and this one is Nunca Lo Suficiente. It was produced by Ivan Barrias in Philly. And here we go, Colmado Music Group. Yeah. Yeah. No sé bailar, pero quiero bailar contigo. No sé nadar, pero quiero nadar contigo. Lo he dicho antes, 1000 veces más yo lo digo. Tu amor me ata y libremente lo digo. En verdad, yo ni sé lo que yo digo. Pa' decirte la verdad, miento como mi mamá, igualito a mi papá. Pero eso no es nada, tu amor me puede curar todo lo tóxico. Déjate llevar, no me digas que no. Mírame a los ojos, mira qué lindos son. Pienso en lo tuyo y ellos son la razón. Que estoy loco por verte y tú pues escúchame la voz. Hoy es el día de tu suerte, así que déjate llevar y agárrate fuerte. Pienso en ti mucho, a veces demasiado, nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Pienso en ti mucho, a veces demasiado, nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Y aunque yo no sé cantar, nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Pienso en ti mucho, que a veces demasiado, pero nunca lo suficiente. Yeah. Y aunque yo no sé cantar, puede ser mi instrumental, un amor medicinal, tu amor me puede curar todo lo tóxico. Déjate llevar, no me digas que no, mírame a los ojos. Un tipo de la 13 dijo que te atreviera, eso no significa que te va con cualquiera. Lo que sube baja, sabe causa, efecto. Dame un segundo, vas a decir que es esto. Mira, quiero amarte lento, aunque nos quede poco tiempo. Así que relájate un poco, libérate un poco, después de ti loco, tú tenemos. Y aunque yo no sé cantar, puede ser mi instrumental, un amor medicinal, tu amor me puede curar todo lo tóxico. Déjate llevar, no me digas que no, porque sentí mucho, a veces demasiado, nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. Yeah. Pienso en ti mucho, a veces demasiado, nunca lo suficiente. Nunca lo suficiente. No, nunca lo suficiente. Dime si piensas en mí como yo pienso en ti. Dime si eres para mí, como yo soy para ti. Que dime si piensas en mí. Josue Lora, nunca lo suficiente.
That was Nunca Lo Suficiente by Josue Lora. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Josue Lora, I'm a recording artist, hip hop. I am a producer and filmmaker.
Tell us a little bit about the first song. First, what's the English translation for the title?
So the first one is Nunca Lo Suficiente, which translates into never enough. And the chorus is literally, I think of you often, sometimes too much, but never enough.
Tell us about that.
So it's I guess it's a love song. It's just about, you thinking about somebody that you like, and, they're like, I guess you're constantly thinking of them, or, the thought of being with them is like constantly running through your head. And then it just seems like, oh, maybe I'm thinking about this person too much. And then it's like, no, it's never enough because you keep thinking about them. So it's like a kind of like a cool play on words, where it's like, it's like, oh, you are thinking about them too much, never enough. And then it like keeps looping back. Mm-hmm. So it was just a nice, catchy way to just say, I'm thinking about you. And what better way than to just say it like that? And I made the track, I think during COVID. I think I was listening to a lot of, Cultura Profética at the time, which they're a reggae band. And I noticed that they had like a bunch of love tracks, and everyone has all these love tracks. And I'm like, oh, cool. Let's see what we can make that might sound similar, because I think I got tired of people trying to put me like in a box that it was like, oh, you can't make anything like that. Or you can't make something like that out of that. And it was like, oh. And then I think I heard the beat, and I was like, I like hummed it at first. I turned the mic on, hummed it for like 5 minutes, and I was like, Yeah, that's it. I got the chorus, and that's how the chorus came to be.
Now, how does this, since it's outside of your usual style, in what way is it different?
I think it was outside of my style at the moment. I think it was just different because I never really like made like a song where I was like, I think as vulnerable, where I was like, I'm thinking of another person as often. And it was like it clearly is like you're talking about a girl. And I think I never really did that before. So I think that's what made it different, where before I might have just talked about myself or my personal experiences, but I never flat out expressed like feelings of like love or like feeling like happy as clear as I did on that song.
Now, since it's a love song, is it about a particular person or just love in general?
It's for you guys to find out. Yeah, it is. It is about a particular person. She's sitting next to me.
Oh.
But yeah, I would say about the song, it was produced by Ivan Barrias, and Ivan is like a super talented producer. If you look him up, you will see everyone he's worked with, but I think his most, I guess, recognized bodies of work was he produced a bunch of stuff for Music Soul Child on like their first 3 albums. So it has kind of like that early 2000s R&B vibe. So I was like, oh, this is like kind of perfect. And then the drum pattern is like insane. So
he's a great producer, Ivan Barrias.
Yeah, he produced Nota Ajena. I have an album called Morir Soñando that we released like 2 years before COVID, and he produced a lot of it. Yeah, it took 2 years to actually sit down and meet with him because I think he sat on the board for like the Recording Academy. So when we met with him, it was like the Grammys were coming up, so he was doing all this like planning, and he was producing for like the wildest names. Like he was like, oh, I'm sending this out to Meg Thee Stallion, and I was like, yo, this is insane. And we're sitting there, and he's like, oh, I did this and that, but we sat with him and we only played music for 20 minutes. Out of those 8 hours, we only played music for 20 minutes. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I know you guys came for music. I was like, this was probably like more helpful to the music.
I was going to say
else.
that's a sign of a good producer, because if you don't know the artist, you can't be a good producer.
I think we got exactly what we wanted too in the amount of time that we actually like did listen to music, because we talked for so long.
Yeah, it was like a really chill vibe. Like it felt like I was talking like to my uncles, because I grew up with my uncles, and I'm sure it felt like you were talking to your cousins.
Yeah, like a cousin. Yeah,
like he even cooked. Like he made tacos in there. Like,
cool dude, man. He's a real cool dude.
And he had like this crazy studio in his house, kind of like here, like House of Robots. So I think once you can combine the two, like make the studio feel like a house, like your home, you create something crazy.
So tell me about your musical journey. How did you start producing, writing?
Just like Notaje, I was born in New York, and my mom sent me when I was 2, and then I lived with my grandmother.
Sent you
to Dominican Republic. Yeah, that's like common, and
We do that a lot.
if you were born in the 90s, there's like a 9 out of 10 chance that your mom sent you to Dominican Republic at least for a year.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was about.
So we learned Spanish.
Yeah. So she put me in the box. She shipped me out when I was 2. So I went to live with my grandmother, my mom's mom, from when I was 2 to when I was 8. And it was in the house. It was my mom, her 3 sons, my uncles, and her husband. So my grandmother was like really into church. So we went to church like 3 times a week. The days that there was no church, I was like going to church to hang out with like the other church kids. It was basically every day. It was like a church activity, but it didn't feel like church. I actually wanted to go. And they used to sing at church, and I always sung the songs. And then my uncles were like, they were teenagers during that time. So, it was like whatever was like popular in the 90s, they were into it. Like a lot of Vico C, because he had like a positive message, and a lot of like different Christian artists, but they liked hip hop. So they would play it a lot, and I was like 3, and I would know every word from them. And then we would go to the church, they'd have live music, and I would like really enjoy doing that. And then when I came here, my cousin would throw parties all the time.
And when did you come back here?
When I was 8, I came at the end of 03, the beginning of 04. So when I came, In the Club was like the hot song. That was like you and I lived in New York. Like I was in New York every day, and you heard it everywhere. Sean Paul was huge, and she had like this huge sound system, and she had little daughters. They were like 2 and 1. So anything they did, she would throw a huge party. I think it was mainly for her, but the family would come over, and it was like they would play like music everywhere, and the culture in New York. Like my first summer in New York, like if you've never spent a summer in New York or even spent a day of your summer in New York, it's like nothing else. So I spent my summers there, but I always used to have to. We actually lived in Patterson, but since my mother worked, she would drop us off at my aunt's. She would pick us up really early in the morning, and we would take a bus from New York, Manhattan to Patterson. But even in the mornings, walking to we had to take a train first. Walking through the train station, you heard people playing like sax. And it was like this romantic way of I went from like the summer, and now it's the fall, and I'm walking through the train station, and you're hearing somebody playing jazz early in the morning, and it's this melodic, beautiful romantic thing. And I didn't know that all that was still in my head. I was growing up, and then I would get on the bus, and my mom had a CD player. And I was like, oh, I'm bored. Can I take your CD player? And I was like, people said I had ADHD when I was little. I moved around a lot. So she would be like, here's the CD player. Stay still. We have a 45-minute bus ride and it's 6 a.m. So anybody that sold mixed CDs, I didn't speak English at the time. I would make her buy me one. So again, at the time, I think I had a mixed Daddy Yankee CD. And months later, he dropped one of his biggest albums, Barrio Fino. I believe it was, where it had the Gasolina or whatever. So I started listening to that. At the time, Tego Calderon was gigantic. To put it into perspective, Tego Calderon was basically what Bad Bunny is today, but there was no social media and everyone knew his stuff. So anywhere you heard, he was every summer, that summer of '04, it was the Tego Calderon summer. And then the following year was the Daddy Yankee summer. So I started just listening to a lot of music, and then on the bus rides, I started writing. And that was by the time I got into 5th grade, I would keep writing, and my cousin was still having her parties. So by this time I'm 11, 12. So for those 4 years, I'm just writing, mimicking what they're saying, imitating their flow, but it's still with the roots from Dominican Republic, a lot of live instruments. And then I moved to Trenton. My mom moved here when I was 13. So I didn't see my grandma and my uncles in Dominican Republic, or even my cousins in New York, for a really long time. So I picked up a camera and started playing with that. I recorded my first song when I was 13, and then I wanted to shoot a video to it. And I'm 13. My mom has no money. She didn't let me out the house when we moved to Trenton for obvious reasons or whatever. So I would watch a bunch of music videos all I watched was music videos from the time I woke up. As soon as the sun went down, I would watch movies. I would watch HBO movies, these crazy cinematic movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching at 13. So then I developed a love for cinema and music.
Where do you feel artistically that you're at now?
I feel I'm at the at my peak level. I feel I'm the best artist I have ever been in my life. I have access to anything to create that I can. I've managed to build a bunch of really good connections.
That's always been in the core, having your place, your sanctuary, your all your own stuff to be able to do it.
Yeah. We started our own music label by Colmado Music Group. I own my own recording studio. I own my own film company. I am creating everything myself. If there's nobody in the studio and I want to make something, I will go and produce it myself.
Everything is in-house, yeah.
I also know I'm wise enough to know I can't do everything myself. So that was a really good lesson I had to learn.
How is it being the head of an indie label? Because I know you're highly involved with a lot of people that work out of the studio and eventually become, people that we can't live without.
So I think before anything, I always just say we're all artists. I'm an artist, you're an artist. Yeah. And at the very least, we'll just create something fun. I think it just sounds funny to say. I think it's just, I just go into it like we're all just creating. We're all artists.
Yeah, no. The only reason I mention this because I feel like there's such a put it in easy terms. There's such a vibe of like coming from the studio and everybody in it and the way that they're making music. It feels like that it's been nurtured in that environment where it's like you walk in and it's like, all right, things are getting created, things are getting made, everything's creative. And
I think that just comes from doing it. They always say like those who like reach true success are the ones that like never gave up. And I think that for me, at least, that's been like true. Or what is it? The 10,000 hours, 10 years. A lot of times people just quit. They give up. They'll do it for like a year.
All right, let's go on to the second song.
Hey, how's it going? Josue Lora here, a House of Robots, Colmado Music Group. And this one is Regalos. Give people their flowers while they're still here. Yeah. Yeah. No dejo que nada me estrese. Se siente como suena y todo es lo que parece. Vivo una vida hermosa, tengo una tipa hermosa. Me regalan flores, mi mamá se llama Rosa. Me regalan flores mientras pueda yo leerla, mientras pueda verla. Me enseñan lo lindo de la vida en un mundo tan cruel. Mi camino está escrito, a su familia soy fiel. Ey, lo que no entiendo, miren su mano, los dejo porque tengo sueños nuevos. También hay sueños perdidos, pero hoy no duermo tranquilo. Yo no conozco la envidia, solo amor. Va a conservar mi energía, a mí la luz se me iba. Pero yo nunca perdí ese fuego que tengo. No tengo ni que explicarte a ti de dónde vengo. Sabes de dónde voy y sabes para dónde vengo, ey. Pasé mucho tiempo dudándome, esperando que alguien me salve, explicando que soy digno de todo lo que tengo y todo el amor que andan con gente negativa yo ni hablo, en lo innecesario ni pienso, no gasto mi tiempo, qué lindo es vivir. El dolor significa que puedes sentir, la vida es hermosa, es una obra de Dios. Dime quién eres tú para decir quién soy yo, yo soy lo que soy. Me veo bien y me siento mejor porque me miras así, me miras así. Tú y tus hijos quieren parecerse a mí, hey. Me río y vivo feliz. No hay nada que me puedan decir que pasé mucho tiempo dudándome, esperando que alguien me salve, explicando que soy digno de todo lo que tengo y todo el amor. No hay que decir más nada. Yeah. Me regalan, ¿qué? Me regalan flores mientras pueda yo leerla. Me regalan flores mientras pueda yo leerla. Mientras pueda verla me enseñan lo lindo de la vida en un mundo tan cruel. Mi camino está escrito, a su palabra soy fiel. Josue Lora, House of Robots, Colmado Music Group. ¿Saben qué es lo que?
That was Regalos. Tell us a little bit about that song. I know a little bit about how it was made. If you can go into the production a little bit.
So Regalos, it was produced by a good friend of mine. He works with the label. He's the head engineer at the studio. A-Stacks, the Beat Lord. Yeah, so we call him Stacks. I think we were in the studio one time and we had like a glass of wine and I'm like, oh, yo, this is it's a cool beat. It's laid back, it was spring at the time. So it had like that vibe, like, and it was like just when spring had started, it was like the first like kind of warm day of like the year. And I was like, oh, this is kind of bright. So I wrote the song and then I came in with my girlfriend actually. And again, we had one wine tasting that day, and we got like this sangria bottle that we're like, this is like such a good sangria bottle, like you taste everything. So by the end of the song, we like finished the sangria bottle, and she recorded me, and it was like different for me because I don't like people recording me. It was like one of the few times I let somebody else do it, like not even A-Stacks. I think I recorded with him twice. So this one, I think I did 3 takes, and the third take, she was like, just keep that one's it. And I'm over here like on the computer for like another hour, like, no, I gotta change this. And then she was like, please play it back. And by that time I was like the last glass of wine. And by the time we like played it back, we're like, this is it. And the song is called Regalos. It's about giving people their flowers. Just, that's when the flowers started to bloom. So it's like goes hand in hand with the environment.
Well, you mentioned flowers before they're gone.
Yeah, so give people their flowers before they're gone. Basically, just if you love somebody, it was like a Kanye line, If you love somebody, tell them people only get flowers when people never get flowers while they can still smell them. I think is the line.
That's the line, yeah.
So it's just a appreciating, like, the simple things that some people might take for granted.
Expressing gratitude, is that?
Appreciation. I think it's like a
So it's like I said in the line, like, while I can still see things, they show me how beautiful the world really is. And then the next line, even though like the world might be cruel and everything's not like, everything's not colorful and bright, we still should be thankful. And my grandma always taught me that. And, going to church with her, going back.
What words did she use? Do you recall any of them to teach you that?
My grandma always just told me to focus on like myself. She always said, if somebody else is doing something else, you don't have to do that. And she just said, and be happy what we have. Like we grew up poor. I had no idea we were poor. Like my grandma did not complain. I was a little kid. I knew we were poor when I went back and I said, who lives here? When I walked through the door and they were like, we live here. What do you mean? But I had no idea. She was very thankful. Anything you ever give her, she's very grateful. Me and her have this thing where when she comes stays with me or I go visit her, if I go out, I always know to bring her something because it'll make her feel good. It could be like a plastic utensil from this place that has like the logo.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. You thought of me. And she'll look at my uncles, her kids, and she's like, you guys don't love me. See, he brought me something. She'll like joke with them. She always said, we might not have much, which when I was little, I'm like, I'm having a blast. Like, life is cool, but we have everything we need. And they were very loving people. They were like, still are. They're like beautiful people, where most of my father's side of the family, they had like a lot more money, but they didn't seem as happy. My grandma's side of the family could complain all day, but they never did. And they were always grateful, thankful. They were always smiling. They were always cracking jokes.
All right, let's move on to the third song.
Que lo que, Josue Lora, Colmado Music Group, we're a house of robots, and this one is called A veces sí. Let's go. Yeah. Dice así. Me acuerdo de ti, bebé, mi diamante. Tú brillabas sola y te conozco de antes. Bebé, si se da, dime qué vamos a hacer. Tú sabes que es lo que es, pero siempre dices a veces sí, a veces sí, a veces no. Pa' decirte la verdad, pa' que juegas conmigo. A veces sí, a veces sí, a veces no. Pa' decirte la verdad, pa' que juego contigo. Bebé, tengo que darme la espalda, porque sabe que no soy cualquiera. Bebé sabe que yo tengo jeva y me tira así como quiera. El tiempo todo lo borra, escribiste mi nombre en la arena. Y aunque esto no dure, bebé, no te apresures, que sabes que es lo que es, pero siempre dices, ¿cómo? ¿Qué? Pero siempre dices, a veces sí, a veces sí, a veces no. Pa' decirte la verdad, pa' que juegas conmigo, que a veces sí, a veces sí, a veces no. Pa' decirte la verdad, pa' que juego contigo. Josue Lora, Colmado Music Group, House of Robots. Thank you for having me.
And that was A veces sí. That's probably one of my favorite tracks I've heard from you in
I got one.
Now I'm not gonna say a while because there's a lot on that hard drive, but that's definitely one of my favorite ones. Tell us a little bit of that one. How'd you come up with it? I know Stax produced that one, right?
Yeah, A Stax will be Lord again. I think I found the sample and I was just like, hey, you should can you like add drums to this sample? And I was messing with him. I was like, because I had added my own drums, and I said, I dare you to get better drums than me. And then he just looked at me and he said, you know I can make better drums than you. And I knew that. Like, he's been producing since he was like 11. Like, he's insane. So I gave him the sample. I had already wrote the song. I knew exactly what I was gonna say. So he added like 3 different drum patterns. One of them is like drill pattern drums with like the heavy 808 bass, something that's like really popular now. And then he added the soft, maybe like reggaeton, kind of like
As like a build
dance hall kind of drums on there. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then to make it even crazier, he like looped in like a traditional bachata pattern, which is like with the congas, which I thought it was like really interesting because I've never really heard all three styles mix so well. And then you know the voice patterns and everything, how the voices were laid on top. It was kind of interesting because now you're like taking me back to my roots. You're adding kind of like modern elements because you know we live on the East Coast, but you're also adding those elements of like that like reggaeton element that a lot of Central American countries want to listen to now. So I thought it touched all bases.
Yeah.
In the song.
That song, like the minute it comes on, it puts a smile on my face because I know the energy that it has to it. So like the minute the hook comes in, can you like talk a little bit about like what the song is about or?
Yeah, so going back, the song is a veces sí is basically sometimes yes, sometimes no. And it's basically like let me see, like it actually it's kind of like almost identical to this other song that you and I have, Naufrago.
I can yeah.
You didn't even know that.
No. So indecision.
Yeah, you're indecisive. It's literally the exact same concept, but you're not gonna. You're not gonna catch it. So it's basically you just like a girl tells you sometimes yes, sometimes no, and it's like that same topic where like we don't live forever, we're gonna die someday. I didn't really write it about like it being a love song because it's like, but it is like that's how the audience will perceive it. But for me, it was more about just stop wasting time. You know, sometimes you say yes, sometimes you say no. Why play yourself? Like you're only playing yourself if you like wait for tomorrow for something you could do today. Yeah. And then I just wrote it in a way that it sounds like it's kind of like a love song just to appeal to like a more general audience. But yeah, that's basically like how the writing process went and how the production came to be.
Now, when you say sometimes yes, sometimes no, are you speaking of deliberately choosing paths or not stressing over choosing paths? I could see that going both ways.
So the song itself, when you hear it, is like the girl is saying, sometimes she's like says yes, sometimes she wants to hang out with you or whatever, kick it with you, and sometimes she says no. And then it's like, it goes on to like, you say no, but I know you mean yes. But for me personally, it was really like, sometimes you want to do something, sometimes you don't. Like, just be clear, be decisive. Don't just like kind of like float around. Have a clear plan because you know tomorrow's not promised. So for me, that's what it was, and then it's kind of like a cool little love melody.
Yeah, it has a feature too, doesn't it? Is that song?
Yeah, I don't know which one I'm gonna use.
No, you don't. Okay, so we won't touch on it.
So I'm actually releasing it soon. Probably by the time this comes out, will probably
I'm kind of mad I don't have it in my phone already.
There we go. By the time this episode comes out, the song will be released.
All right. Thank you, Lora.
You're welcome, Peter. I love you.
Love you too, bro.
You can find me anywhere. Josue Lora, JOSUE_LORA, or colmadomusicgroup.com. COLMADO. Again, COLMADO music group everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Everywhere. High Five, MySpace.
Definitely check out the YouTube. I don't think we got into your video stuff, but definitely go check out the YouTube.
Yeah.
Incredible work.
And Peter, where can we find you online?
You guys can find me at NOTA_G. Anywhere, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube as House of Robot, or visit houseofrobot.com.
Thank you for listening to Take 3. Thank you to WTSR Radio and the College of New Jersey.